Videos like this, where Igbo women are dressed in full traditional regalia that portrays their achievements, that portrays their status as a Nne Mmawu, or whenever we see videos where women are interacting with masquerades in their capacity as Nne Mmawu, or because they belong to traditional institutions that support them associating themselves with masquerades. I usually see Igbo men being perturbed by that mere fact. To them, it's unheard of, it's an abominable thing that a woman would associate herself with masquerade, no matter her age and no matter the capacity. Now, oftentimes we try to correct these negative impressions that, based on our traditions and cosmology, some women who have gotten to a certain age can participate in masquerade activities. Now, these women, we refer to them as Nne Mmawu, mother of masquerades. Now, what does Nne Mmawu entail? The position of Nne Mmawu in Igbo culture is regarded as a sort of achievement, and this achievement is usually tied with the age of the woman. Now, basically, when Igbo women get to a certain age, they can take the title or become, or they will be initiated and be referred to and known as Nne Mmawu. Now, these sets of women can actively participate in masquerade activity, and they can be praised and greeted by masquerades just like they would a man. So this means when these women go to occasions like these women we are seeing in this video, then masquerades comes around, the masquerade is going to also greet them because they have gotten to that level, to that stage, that prestigious stage in their life. And in other cases, these women, Nne Mmawu, knowing what goes on within the masquerade court, is no longer considered or regarded as Ita Mmawu. Now, Ita Mmawu, it is a process of revealing masquerade informations or secrets to the uninitiated. So when these women are privy to informations or what goes on within the masquerade court, it is no longer regarded as Ita Mmawu, because at that point in their life, or because of their positions, they are now known as Nne Mmawu. So they have the full right to basically know information, and this information would be disclosed to them without any repercussions or without any negative interpretation of what is actually going on. Now, in other cases, these women that we also refer to as Nne Mmawu can institute and own a masquerade which they can go to several occasions with. Like I witnessed one when we went for an event, a festival at Edonewi, and I saw a woman leading a masquerade into the arena. So it got me wondering, because based on the information that I was privy to before I got to this recent information of Nne Mmawu, I was meant to know that women don't interact with masquerades, but I was not really told or taught the context on which an Igbo woman can actively participate and interact with masquerade, not even to talk more of a woman leading a masquerade into an occasion. Now, women don't necessarily wear the award, we don't wear the masquerades, but we engage in these masquerade activities. So it is also important to know that for a woman to actively participate or be regarded as a Nne Mmawu, her also having the right to even institute or own and lead a masquerade into an occasion, we need to know that she must be of age. She must have gotten to the age, which the appropriate age where she can actually serve as an Nne Mmawu. Now, Nne Mmawu, when I look at it as an achievement, I kind of compare it with Igbo men. When they've gotten to a certain age and they've achieved, they have kids, they take up chieftaincy titles. They take up titles, or they basically involve themselves in Ozo kind of title. Now, this is what happens here. When an Igbo woman has gotten to the age that is appropriate for her to interact with masquerades, she can now get herself involved with, and become an Nne Mmawu and be known as Nne Mmawu by being initiated into that particular guild. Now, just like Igbo women, we have institutions, organizations, or guilds that represent the interest of men. We also have the same one for women, and it is called Ekwe. Like in Nnewi now, just like men take up the other title, in my community, the women take up the title of Ichiekwe. And it's the same thing that happens in Igbariam. In other community, they might have different names for it. But we know that in our own community, in my own community, women take up the title of Ichiekwe. Now, these are institutions where women can basically engage themselves with and can even interact with masquerades in that capacity. Now, it has to do with age and what age is appropriate for a woman to be referred to as a Nne. The woman must have passed the age of childbearing. She will not be an underage, a teenager, or a young adult, or a young woman. She must have gotten to the age where she has passed her childbearing age. We call them Ndi Biliachi, older women, Ndi Agadi Nwanyị. Ibiliashi or agadi nwanyị because they have passed that age of childbearing. Now, just like this name Mao is associated with age, I know of an exception in Nsukka. They call her Enyema. Then her title as a name mom is not limited to her age. It doesn't matter if she has passed the childbearing age or not. Her status is not limited to her age. Now, this is to show you how diverse Igbo culture is. What is predominant in this region might not necessarily be dominant in other regions as well. So we call it Odibende or Kandisi Emeife. How people do interact, eat, their own cultural practices. Odibende Kandisi Emeife. Now, what is the rationale for this age limit? Because this is a very important question that we need to start knowing. What is the rationale for this age limit, which basically limits women, Igbo women, from interacting with masquerades and involving in masquerade activity? Now, this rationale stems from our own representation of what the masquerade is. Now, in some Enugu communities, the Enugu state, there is something that they do, Odo festival. To them, it is a time when their ancestors come in to visit them and they wear the clothing of a masquerade. They come in form of a masquerade. Now, it's funny how this Odo festival coincides with the Halloween. Now, I used to imagine the ancient Celts, they use this Samhain festival to basically, see it as a day of the dead. Now, in Odo here in eastern Nigeria, it is same thing that is also applicable. And for some reasons, the month which the Halloween happens is also the month that Odo also happens, and the dates are very much similar. So it will give you something to basically think about and ask how things, how these things basically coincide, or what makes this month special. Now, moving on though, because we view masquerades as representative of ancestors and then we also perceive women to be life bringers. So in our own cosmology, these two things cannot mix. We now have to keep them separate enough to function independently because of what it represents to us as Igbo. Now, the second reasons why women don't participate in masquerade activities is because these masquerade cults are instituted with an alchemical configuration, ogu, which a woman's menstruation can negatively influence. We call it na nsọ nwaanyị na-agbalụ ọgwụ. So because of that perception, we see that women don't actively participate in these activities because of that biological fact. And because of it, women have to get to the appropriate age where they no longer menstruate, where they are no longer able to bring forth life, and they can now engage in masquerade activities. Now, finally, the practice of Nne Mmawu in Igbo culture is an interesting one because it shows a cultural dynamics on Igbo gender relations and gender interactions. Now, why this thing is essential is because we have been taught and told that Igbo culture limits and subjugates women. This is because our culture does not seek equality but equity. What it does is that it provides for everybody. It in tunes you with activities, or it brings out cultural practices that are in tune with your gender and what your biology dictates. So it tilts towards equity and not more of equality. But nonetheless, when we also look at some of these cultures and we see that they no longer serve a certain purpose, because every culture is built based on the understanding of ancestors or people that were interacting with the realities as at of those times. So when we look at our own current reality, it would mean that we have to adjust some certain cultural practices that are not inclusive. I'm not talking about masquerade, including when a masquerade events, because there is a separate reasons and we might not necessarily find out. Besides, personally, I don't see anything wrong with how the whole masquerade thing functions. But on a grander scale, in an other perspectives, there are things that women are voicing out. There are things that men are voicing out. If we can adjust them to suit our modern realities, then it is essential. And the reason because of it is that culture is not static. From time immemorial, culture has been evolving, culture has been changing. Culture is quite dynamic. So if we should understand culture as something that is dynamic, then we should also understand that there is room for improvement and not change. There is room for improvement. So we need to see these practices as a way how culture is trying to not equalize but show equity, balance. This is where the notion or the proverb of ihe kwuru, ihe akwudebeye, when something stands, there is something that stands behind it, when it comes into play. This is because our culture is rooted on what equity truly represents. But most times when we look at Eurocentric interpretations of our culture, we kind of have this silent idea that our culture subjugates and silences a woman's voice. But in reality, it doesn't. It provides both sexes, both genders with things that are adequate for their own survival. It brings it in. It says this one is for the men, this one is for the women. Nke a bụ nke ụmụ nwoke, nke a bụ nke ụmụ nwanyị. So while men engage in chieftaincy titles and participate in all those kinds of activities, when they get to that certain age, when they have fulfilled some certain prerequisites, then the same thing that women also do when we've gotten to that age, when we've met with those requirements as well. So if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. We talk about ordinary Igbo, the Igbo ancestral perception. We talk about our culture, spirituality. The aim of our pages, our social media pages in this YouTube is to bring into light how our ancestors understood things. Therefore, explaining our traditional, spiritual, cultural concepts from an ancestral perspective, not from a Eurocentric perspective or from a doctored historical perspective, but from an ancestral perspective. So if you're new, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, Yagazia.